This is Land of Havilah, 1 Chronicles 18, which is a close parallel of 2 Samuel chapter 8. It's a very short summary of David's military victories while he was king of Israel. It omits the victories of his earlier life, such as when he was king of Judah, and before that when he led his little private army in exile, and before that when he was an Israelite commander under Saul. After David became king of Israel and offered to build a house for Yahweh, and Yahweh told David that he would make his name great in the earth, verse 1. After this, David defeated the Philistines and subdued them, and took Gath and its towns out of the hand of the Philistines. Comment: the Philistines were in the coastal lowlands on Israel's west. David defeated the Philistine city of Gath and its towns, meaning he defeated Gath and the smaller towns around it, and subdued the Philistines in general. Coming up, Moab was a foreign country to the east, on the opposite side of the Dead Sea. Verse 2. He defeated Moab, and the Moabites became servants to David and brought tribute. Comment: David made the Moabite army lie down in 3 lines. He killed 2 lines and let the other line live. 2 Samuel 8:2. Then David required tribute from Moab, meaning he taxed them. Coming up, there are several nations to Israel's north populated by Syrian peoples. Zobah was one of those nations, ruled by King Hadadezer. Zobah was roughly between the city of Damascus and the Euphrates River. Hamath was a city now known as Hama, Syria. Verse 3. David defeated Hadadezer, king of Zobah, to Hamath as he went to establish his dominion by the river Euphrates. David took from him 1,000 chariots, 7,000 horsemen, and 20,000 footmen, and David hamstrung all the chariot horses, but reserved of them enough for 100 chariots. When the Syrians of Damascus came to help Hadadezer, king of Zobah, David struck 22,000 men of the Syrians. Then David put garrisons in Syria of Damascus, and the Syrians became servants to David and brought tribute. Yahweh gave victory to David wherever he went. David took the shields of gold that were on the servants of Hadadezer and brought them to Jerusalem. From Tibhath and from Kun, cities of Hadadezer, David took very much brass, with which Solomon made the bronze sea, the pillars, and the vessels of brass. Comment: there will be more information about David's conflicts with the Syrians of Zobah and Damascus in the next chapter. Meanwhile, in verses 3 through 8 that we just read, it's not clear, but it seems that King Hadadezer of Zobah was trying to reestablish control of an area near the Euphrates River, and while he was engaged in that, David attacked him and defeated him. In verse 5, Syrians from Damascus tried to come help Hadadezer against Israel, but David defeated them also. In verse 6, David established garrisons in Damascus to keep the Syrians in subjection and to exact tribute. This was all possible because, quote, Yahweh gave victory to David wherever he went, end quote. In verse 7, David took shields of gold from the servants of Hadadezer. Shields of gold were a display of wealth, glory, and power, 1 Kings 14:27. So David stripped Hadadezer of his wealth, glory, and power. In verse 8, David seized a large quantity of brass or bronze from the region. It was still the Bronze Age. A generation later, Solomon used that bronze when he constructed the pillars and bronze sea of the temple. Coming up, Tou, another king of another Syrian empire to the north, was watching all this. His city of Hamath was located at modern Hama, Syria. Verse 9. When Tou, king of Hamath, heard that David had struck all the army of Hadadezer, king of Zobah, he sent Hadoram his son to King David to greet him and to bless him because he had fought against Hadadezer and struck him, for Hadadezer had wars with Tou, and he had with him all kinds of vessels of gold and silver and brass. Comment: King Tou was glad that David defeated Hadadezer because Hadadezer had been his enemy. Tou didn't want David to subjugate him also, and he knew he owed David in a way, so he sent his son to Jerusalem on a diplomatic mission. The son told David, in effect, thanks for defeating Hadadezer. Take this silver, gold, and brass as a token of our appreciation. Let us know what else we can do for you. And it wasn't just Tou of Hamath who offered to serve David. Quote, when all the kings who were servants to Hadadezer saw that they were defeated before Israel, They made peace with Israel and served them, 2 Samuel 10:19. In other words, the kings who had been sending tribute to Hadad-ezer started sending it to David, figuring David was the new force to be dealt with. The money that made Solomon so rich was starting to flow into Israel. Speaking of the gold, silver, and brass that Tow sent, verse 11, King David also dedicated these to Yahweh with the silver and the gold that he carried away from all the nations, from Edom, from Moab, from the children of Ammon, from the Philistines, and from Amalek. Moreover, Abishai, the son of Zeruiah, struck 18,000 of the Edomites in the valley of Salt. He put garrisons in Edom, and all the Edomites became servants to David. Yahweh gave victory to David wherever he went. Comment in verse 12, Abishai was son of David's sister Zeruiah. He was David's nephew, in other words, and a commander of the army, as was Abishai's brother Joab. Led by Abishai, Israel defeated Edom in the valley of Salt, which is the valley of the Dead Sea. In verse 13, Edom served Israel, meaning they did whatever David told them, whether it was paying tribute or helping them in their various wars. In verse 11, combined with information from other verses, and this makes a circle around the points of the compass, Israel was in control of the various Syrian kingdoms to the north, Maacah and Tob to the northeast, Ammon and Moab on the east, Edom to the southeast, Amalek in the desert southward, and Philistia on the west. Plus there was peace with King Hiram of Tyre on the northwest. In verse 13, a repeat of verse 6, quote, Yahweh gave victory to David wherever he went, end quote. In the history of Israel, this was an unprecedented degree of security, power, and wealth. Verse 14, David reigned over all Israel, and he executed justice and righteousness for all his people. Joab the son of Zeruiah was over the army. Jehoshaphat the son of Ahilud was recorder. Zadok the son of Ahitub and Abimelech the son of Abiathar were priests. Shavsha was scribe, and Benaiah the son of Jehoiada was over the Cherethites and Pelethites, and the sons of David were chief officials serving the king. Comment in verse 14, David executed justice and righteousness for all his people. David was, quote, as an angel of God to discern good and bad, 2 Samuel 14:7. In verse 16, Zadok was one of the priests at this time. Everything on record about Zadok is positive. He took the right stance in every situation. The priest and prophet Ezra descended from Zadok about 20 generations later, Ezra 7:2. The Cherethites and Pelethites in verse 17 were full-time professional troops as opposed to being called up on an as-needed basis. Benaiah was their captain, also translated commander. 1 Chronicles 19 is next.